Welcome to the channel. I'm Reverend Dr. J.W. Morrison. Judges 14, Samson's marriage. This is very, very interesting, especially for you people that love dysfunction and the sinful nature. One day Samson went down to Timnah. Timnah means forbidden, a place you shouldn't go, and that's what happens to a lot of us, isn't it? We go where we're forbidden. That's because our sinful nature is rebellious. By nature, we are rebels. That's all there is to it. Where he saw a young Philistine woman, sex. Samson loved sex with the wrong people, like a lot of you and a lot of people I know. So he returned and told his father and mother. Why? Okay, covert emotional incest. I've seen a daughter of the Philistines in the forbidden land, Timnah. Now get her for me as a wife. Well, why couldn't he do that himself? Okay, we've got a lot of people that are over-dependent on their parents. But his father and mother replied, can't you find a young woman from among your relatives? What's that? That is incest. Or among any of our people? Well, among any of our people, fine. See, Samson was too attached to his parents, like a lot of you young men are. Okay, we look at Samson as some big, strong super. No. Samson was just as much a deviant as the drunk down on the street, as the person in the brothel. Sorry. That's just how it was. He had a sinful nature and he liked sex. He was too attached to his parents. He was covert emotionally attached to his mother and father. And he liked strange women. Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? But Samson told his father, get her for me. Right? Why couldn't he do it? For she is pleasing to my eyes. Now his father and mother did not know that this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines, for at that time the Philistines were ruling over Israel. Now you've got to understand how God works. Okay. Unfortunately, it's so unfortunate, but sometimes God will use the desires of his people, the sinful desires, the evil desires of his people. You've got to listen to this, to bring about what he needs to fulfill against the enemies of his people. Sometimes the unruly, the rebellious, those that keep going to the forbidden land, Christians, will be used by the Lord to take out the enemy, but they'll also be taken out themselves. They will take out themselves. It's not the Lord that's doing it, it's their own actions. Then Samson went down to the forbidden land Timnah with his father and mother and came to the vineyards of Timnah. Now, the interesting part about this is, ladies and gentlemen, his father and mother gave in. And this is happening right across the world. Parents are giving in to their children. Their children are becoming spoiled, sullen, and turning out to be absolute monsters and bastards and bitches. I'm sorry. Delinquents. They're costing their parents thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. They're drunks, drug addicts, sexually immoral. Young girls are getting pregnant before their time and bastardizing their children to 2 or 3 different men, 2 or 3 different children to 2 or 3 different men. And the parents are giving into this horrible, wayward form of parenting. Weak, spineless parenting. I'm sorry, viewers, but that's what it is. And these people went with Samson to Timnah, the forbidden place. And many of you parents are doing this with your children. You're watching them in sexual immorality. You're watching them as drunkards. You're enabling them to not pay rent and grow up. You're loaning them money for drugs. You're supplying them drugs. You have no boundaries, no discipline, and then you wonder why these people are in trouble. It's the parents. They gave Samson options, even incest, which was stunning, really, when you think about it, shocking. And this is what parents will do. If sex is the problem, they'll go to all means to try and fix it. All lengths. Even if you have to sleep with your sister or your brother, or whatever, please. If that's going to make you feel better. And this is what's happening right across the nations. But the Lord will use these people. Even if they lead themselves to death, He will use them to fulfill His way. Okay, some of you Christians think that you're safe from this. Not if you're living this way, you're not. No, you're not. You're not safe from this stuff. No. Samson, suddenly a lion came roaring at him. Okay? That's not something that happens every day, isn't it? And the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as one would tear a young goat. Now, some of you guys can't even go down the shop and buy milk. All right? So Samson was an unusual sort of a fellow, I would say, wouldn't you? Okay, so he's tore the lion apart like it was a young goat. But he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. And this is what a lot of these people do. They sneak around, they creep around, they steal money out of their mother's purse, cupboard. Some of these people are even smelling their mother's undies. I'm sorry. This is heavy. Come on, let's do it. This is heavy, man. No. Some of you guys listen to your mother and father having sex, and you shouldn't. No. And Samson was a little deviant. As much as the Spirit of the Lord was upon him, he was a deviant. Okay? And it didn't get him anywhere. He was an authority over his parents, obviously, because they were doing forbidden things. They were even going to forbidden places with him. Yet he was one of these people that wouldn't tell his parents what he needed to. He was a passive-aggressive liar. He did not let them know. He was silent about his evil ways. And they knew he was evil. They offered him a relative to sleep with as a wife. And then Samson continued on his way. See, we miss these little words. His way. Not the Lord's way. It was his way. Down and spoke to the woman because she was pleasing to his eyes. Oh, well. We're all guilty of it, us men. Samson's riddle. When Samson returned later to take her, he left the road to see the lion's carcass, and in it was a swarm of bees, along with honey. So he scooped some honey into his hands and ate it as he went along. And when he returned to his father and mother, he gave some to them, and they ate it. What was wrong with that? Well, you're not supposed to eat stuff out of a dead carcass. But he did not tell them what he had taken, the honey from the lion's carcass. And there's a proverb, and I'm just about to find it. Hang on. Here's some proverbs on honey, not from the Bible. Make yourself all honey, and the flies will devour you. You want to think about this. If your friend is honey, don't lick him thoroughly. Bees have honey in their mouths. Bees that have honey in their mouths have stings in their tails. Two biblical proverbs. One says in Proverbs 25:16, if you find honey, eat just what you need, lest you have too much and vomit it. And then Proverbs 25:27, the same chapter, it is not good to eat too much honey or search out one's own glory. Very interesting. Okay, so he's been, again, passive aggressive, deceptive to his parents, holding back information and giving them something forbidden. This is what happens when you hang around a forbidden place. Then his father went to visit the woman, and Samson prepared a feast there. His father went after Samson set it all up. It was supposed to be the other way around. This is the mentality of most parents today. And when the Philistines saw him, they selected 30 men to accompany him. Let me tell you a riddle, Samson said. If you can solve it for me within 7 days of the feast, I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. But if you cannot solve it, you must give me 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. That's the deal, right? Interestingly, Judas wanted 30 pieces of silver. Okay. Tell us your riddle, they replied. Let us hear it. So he said to them, out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. And we know that's the lion and the honey. For 3 days they were unable to explain the riddle. So on the 4th day they said to Samson's wife, entice your husband to explain the riddle to us, or we will burn you and your father's household to death. Did you invite us here to rob us? Now, I don't know what they meant. Oh, well, that's going to be because they'll lose linen, right? Then Samson's wife came to him, and she put on a big act, and she cried for the whole 7 days of the feast, because he wouldn't tell her, right? And this is what women will do. And before sunset on the 7th day, the men of the city said, after Samson's wife pressed him so much, he told her the answer, and she told her cohorts. What you people have got to realize is you are in relationships with people that are talking behind your back. They're backbiting you. They've got smear campaigns running against you. They don't really like you. They're using you as a sexual asset. They're using all, and again, notice the food. Out of the eater came something sweet. What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? You've got to be careful whose food you eat. It's like Bunnings. Bunnings can entice you on Saturdays and Sundays to go there to get a sausage sandwich. And do you want onion and sauce with that? And if you're lucky, they might even have some mustard. But the motive's solely to make money. Okay? Some people will bring you food solely so that you psychologically remember them. It might be all goodwill and loving and everything, but the object is, like Jesus did with the bread and the wine, do this in remembrance of me. So he said to them, if you had not ploughed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. And this is what happens to a lot of men. Their wives confide in other people. They share the intimate details of their life with their husband. And all of a sudden, these people that they share their information with cause terrible trouble for the man, while the wife's just standing there like a fool. Then the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon. And Ashkelon means to weigh. It's an ancient city of southwest Palestine on the Mediterranean Sea. He went down to Ashkelon. Okay, weight, weigh, burden. Killed 30 of their men, took their apparel, and gave their clothes to those who had solved the riddle. Now that's resentment and bitterness, isn't it? And burning with anger, Samson returned to his father's house. Where did he go? back to his default. Ladies and gentlemen, when we're under pressure and things aren't going our way in relationships, where do we go? Back to our default. Your default might be drugs. Your default might be alcohol. Your default might be an ex. Your default could be a second supply, an affair. Your default could be medication. Your default could just be returning home to be with your children, to use them as a shield. There's 1,100,000 defaults. Might be to go out and have an affair. Okay, these are all defaults. Samson returned to his daddy, and his wife was given to one of the men who accompanied him. Now, why was his wife given to one of the men who accompanied him? This is dysfunction deluxe. Absolute dysfunction deluxe. Okay, this was the father trying to save his family from the Philistines. So he's given the wife, out of spite, to somebody else. Well, we're into chapter 15, and we're running out of time. Later on, at the time of the wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat and went to visit his wife. Now, she was with another man. I want to go to my wife in her room, he said, but her father would not let him enter. You know why? Because he knew that this was going to bring trouble upon his house. Samson had been nothing but trouble. But her father would not let him enter, because remember, his wife had been given to another man. I was sure that you thoroughly hated her, said her father, so I gave her to one of the men who accompanied you, which was a lie. He gave her to the other man to settle the Philistines. But it wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to come off. Is not her younger sister more beautiful than she? Please take her instead. So there's this man that must have been given to the wife would have had some kind of influence over the Philistines, and it's held them back from punishing this man and his family. So now he's offering up Samson, the sister. Samson said to them, "This time I will be blameless in doing harm to the Philistines." So he's got grievance now because he got offered the sister and he couldn't have the woman that he wanted, even though she was sleeping with him. Some of you guys are desperate. Honestly, some of you men out there, you'll settle for anything. You've got no standards. You don't care who you sleep with. You drug yourself up. You drug them up. You're all in a mess. You're all drunkards, telling lies about the people that you're supposed to love, taking your resentments out in strange sex. And oh yeah, a lot of these people love having sex with a stranger and complaining and whinging about their partner. Oh, haven't you got a partner? No, I haven't. And the next thing, it happens all the time. Samson took 300 foxes, put torches between their tails, fastened them, and they burnt everything to the ground. The Philistines demanded who was this. It was Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite. They were told. Now, the son-in-law of the Timnite, hang on a sec, the forbidden woman had been given to another man. Now, this is where triangulation gets a lot of you people in trouble. You people that triangulate your children in your business, you people that your private business, your adult business, you triangulate your friends and your relatives in your private business, whinging about your partner and complaining about the person you're supposed to be faithful with, backbiting and just whinging and gloating, and then you're sleeping with them the next minute. What sort of person are you? I'll show you what you are. You're the sort of person that's going to get in trouble. The spirit of the Philistines is following at you on your heels. It was Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite. They were told, for his wife was given to his companion. Now they've gone, so hang on a sec. Who gave his wife to the companion? The father, didn't he? So guess what happened? And you be careful. The Philistines went up and burned her and her father to death. and this is my point. You've got no right to interfere in people's private lives. And the father interfered in his daughter's private life, and it cost him and her their lives because Samson was upset. How would you like it if you come home one day and your father-in-law said, "Oh, look, sorry, mate, I've given your wife to somebody else"? You're not going to be impressed. Samson told them, "Because you have done this, I will not rest until I have taken vengeance upon you." And he struck them ruthlessly with a great slaughter, and then went down and stayed in a cave in Etlam. And sorry, viewers, it's not Etlam, it's Etam. And the meaning is their bird, their covering. Their bird, their covering. Okay. So he might be covered by the wrong bird. Ah, that's interesting, isn't it? A lot of you men are putting yourself in with the wrong people. And a lot of you women are putting yourself in with the wrong men. Then the Philistines went up, camped in Judah, which is praise, and employed themselves near the town of Lehi. Let's quickly look up Lehi. Gosh, it's all happening. Jawbone. Remember Samson killed 300 asses and took their jawbones at one stage. Why have you attacked us? Said the men of Judah. The Philistines replied, "We have come to arrest Samson and pay him back for what he has done to us." Well, Samson wasn't in Judah. In response, 3,000 men of Judah went to the cave at the rock of Etam, and they asked Samson, "Do you not realize the Philistines rule over us? What have you done to us?" "I have done to them what they did to me," he replied. But they said to him, "Why? Well, we have come down to arrest you and hand you over to the Philistines." You've got no friends out there. Okay? It's every man for himself. You really need to understand that you might have a handful of friends, if you're lucky, that you can really trust. And can you trust your partner? Like, I'm just, you got to think. You got to stay alert. Samson replied, "Swear to me that you will not kill me yourselves." "No," they answered, "we will not kill you, but we will tie you up securely and hand you over to them." So they bound him with 2 new ropes and led him up from the rock. So they're taking him in. These are his people. See, people will do anything they have to save themselves. When Samson arrived in Lehi, the Philistines came out shouting against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. Remember, the Lord said he was going to use Samson. Then the ropes on his arms became like burnt flax, and the bones broke loose from his hands. He found the fresh jawbone of a donkey, reached out his hand and took it, and struck down 1,000 men. Then Samson said, "With the jawbone of a donkey I have piled them into heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey I have slain 1,000 men." And when Samson had finished speaking, he cast the jawbone from his hand, and he named the place Ramathah Lehi, which means jawbone, doesn't it? Being very thirsty, Samson cried out to the Lord, "You have accomplished this great deliverance through your servant. Must I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" And God opened up a hollow place in Lehi, and water came out of it. And when Samson drank, his strength returned, and he was revived. And that is why he named the place En Hachor, which means spring of him who calls. And Samson judged Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines. Ladies and gentlemen, there was a lot going on in there. Incest, covert emotional incest, betrayal, deceit, lies, confusion, wives being given to other men, fathers trying to protect themselves by using their children, sisters being offered to husbands, and then the father and the daughter being killed by their own people because they were hiding. Ladies and gentlemen, get your life in order. Really, get your life in order. It's worth it. People are going to fall down around us every day. Okay? You might be going through a breakup. You might be going through something tough. You might have lost a relative. You might have a relative in hospital. Something terrible going on. You might be going to lose a property. You might have grave illness coming upon you. You might have addictions that you want to get out of. Alcoholism. Only you can do it. At the end of the day, only you can do it. Okay, for the sick and the ill, I pray in the name of Jesus. Many of you have given in to your sinful nature. You're worrying about what your ex is doing. Don't worry about what your ex is doing. You're worrying about what your partner's doing. Don't worry about what your partner's doing. You have got to be the best version of yourself. Relationships, you just got to have faith. If it goes wrong, it's not necessarily on you. It's not necessarily have anything to do with you. People have mental problems. They have different ways of dealing with things that aren't always right. And usually when people cheat, it's with somebody of a lesser stature than what you are. And then they want to come back. Have the courage to say no. No. And keep building on yourself. Keep making yourself stronger. See, as you can see with Samson, even in his rebelliousness and forbiddenness and everything that was going on in his life, and it was a mess, the Spirit of the Lord was still with him. The Spirit of the Lord is still with you. We don't know where the Spirit of the Lord is working and everything else. But we do know that the Lord will use who he needs to accomplish his purposes, even if it costs you your life. So you need to be careful and you need to be alert. You really do. He's a good God. And life's not easy, I'm telling you. It's not. It can throw some real strange things at you. And you can get through these things. Come back to yourself, strengthen yourself, self-preserve, be self-aware, self-care first, trust in the Lord, he's with you anyway. And let his Spirit build you slowly but surely. Pray for those you care about, pray for those that have hurt you, and conquer. Just conquer. Don't take drugs, don't drink. And if you are, pray to God to help you find a way out. If you got bitterness, grudges, evil, deceit, if you struggle with lying and gambling and things like this, if you're deceitful, if you're doing things and you're not being honest, just let it go. Pray to God to bring you back to yourself, to honesty, to integrity, to the things that matter. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. Amen.